Good evening and welcome to Live at 5, where truth is our mission, reality our realm. Said as we see it, and frankly as well, I'm Joe Spina along with the Honorable Michael Anthony Satterwhite. How are you, Michael?
I'm good. Happy Tuesday.
It is Tuesday,
Yeah.
and you know what? We have two Michaels here.
We
Not
do.
one, we have two Michaels, and the two Michaels are two successful Michaels, two successful attorneys, with two compelling and inspiring stories to tell, each in his own right. Neither one of you were born with a silver spoon, and you had a couple of bumps along the way. But somehow you made it. You persisted, you persevered. Michael Mahoney, this is your life.
Hey, Joe.
A Man in Full, A Life in Full, Thomas Wolfe. Remember that novel?
Yeah.
So, he's the stuff of novels. You're the stuff of novels. You know, are you aware of the fact that he flunked Jim?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to flunk Jim?
It's pretty hard.
Michael, tell us about that rambunctious youth of yours, huh?
Well, Joe, thanks for the introduction. I wasn't in a wheelchair when I flunked Jim. I was actually able-bodied, but I was a little bit of a wild man when I was a kid. And I just made my rounds, and I actually, I don't think that's a true story about flunking Jim. I don't think.
Was that from The Crow?
Coach Carey's
Well,
kind
Carey,
of
he actually went to 4 high schools in
Yeah.
the same year, which is a story in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but you know, Attorney Mahoney is a great attorney. He's brilliant in what he does, and
But you know what happens this year? Full circle. Do you realize what he's done with his son, Paul? They've gone to every single...
you finished it.
No, we're gonna this summer.
This is it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've been to every single baseball field
Yeah.
in the continental United
Yes.
States.
Yep. We have Seattle, which we're going to do the All-Star game in July.
Okay.
And we're going to actually go with my twins, his
Yeah.
little brothers, Michael and Joe. They're 14 years old. They will be 14.
Wow.
Yeah, they're growing
Oh,
up
well, you're the
fast.
best one, Michael? His oldest son, Paul, is about the same age as my granddaughter,
Yeah, a couple
Lily.
years
They're
older maybe.
contemporaries.
Yeah.
And he's Goldman Sachs boy. I mean, he's nice.
Yeah.
He's did a little
Yeah.
better than you, by
yeah,
the way.
Yeah, he did.
Now, what can I tell you?
He's supposed to do better.
He's better
than
looking, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, stop.
I don't know about that.
But but here's the thing. His son was born on the 4th of July.
I know that story is crazy.
When was he born?
4th of July.
And his
your
two twins.
4th of July.
4th of July,
That is,
yeah.
and I like I told you last time, you have fireworks on your birthday
That's
every
right.
year.
Yes,
That's such a
yeah,
big
yeah.
deal.
But he got wise with the girl. She wasn't born on the 4th of July.
That's right. Lily was born in December.
Okay, yeah.
Good girl.
Yeah.
So,
Libra like me, I hope.
Yeah. December 9, whatever that is.
I don't
so
know.
what about Washington, and then you had one more stadium to go to?
We have Seattle,
Seattle.
and then we have Arizona, the Diamondbacks.
And when are you going to do that?
I'm not sure. Hopefully, it sounds like, thanks to you guys, I have to finish during the summer. But my son's getting married in September, so
whoa.
yeah. So trying to fit that in might be tough this year.
But
Yeah.
you specifically mentioned 2 stadiums last time, Mike, if you remember. San Diego, where you had been.
Oh,
and
beautiful
Pittsburgh.
stadium.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell the folks out there why those 2 stand out?
Well, Pittsburgh, PNC Park, what I liked about that city is you could see the skyline, from the field, from inside, and they closed the Roberto Clemente Bridge during games, and it's open just for foot traffic. So it's just really pretty, and I like baseball parks that have a lot to do around
Yeah.
the field, like
Yeah.
steakhouses, bar rooms,
And
restaurants.
San Diego's like that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. They have the hotels that are
With
connected
the gas
to the
lamp
stadium.
district all the way down. It's beautiful. I was actually at open day with you.
Oh yeah, I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Facebook.
funny.
Yeah, this is my my 23rd in a row opening day
Really?
at Fenway Park.
So
yeah.
I have a cousin that works there. His name is Jojo Holland.
Okay.
He works for the Red Sox.
Yeah,
So he's always a good one to connect with when you get to the stadium.
Good. Yeah. No, it's been. It's always cold though, so I lost about 3 innings, and then come on, we took some pictures. We kept the streak alive. Now let's go to Del Frisco's, get warm, and get a steak.
No, that makes sense.
Michael, you have a real good friend of yours who happens to be in Germany. You've been over in Germany. You've
Yep,
been to Europe,
Marcus.
right? So you've traveled the world a little bit.
I have. I've been everywhere. I've been to South America, North America, Africa, Europe, China, the Asian continent. I haven't gone to
You know
Australia.
who else has done that? This Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I saw him one day to invite him on to our Lynn Camp show before we did it. And he said, geez, I'd love to do it. Give me a call when I get back. I could come back from where? He said, I'm going to go to Madrid. I said, what? He went to Madrid for, listen to this one, a Van Morrison concert.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Now, little did I know that you were a DJ at one time.
I was a disc jockey, yes, back in the 80s and part of the 90s. Yeah.
And you introduced me to Van.
Yeah.
Yeah, Van Morrison.
Yeah, okay.
Black-eyed girl or something like that?
Brown-eyed girl.
yeah.
Yeah, you're close.
Yeah. Well, it was close. And the irony of it all, that a boy. The irony of it all is that not only have you been there, you fly there, I mean, you've been everywhere. You were in Budapest.
Yep.
You
I've
love
actually
Budapest.
seen Van Morrison in London, and
At the Heathrow, was it at one of those?
it was at like a small opera house. It held about 3,000 people.
That's intimate.
And it was great. He did all kinds of old John Lee Hooker blues music, and I took my son Paul, and we went. And then I've seen George Clinton. Have you ever heard of George
Yes,
Clinton
he's
in
the best.
Parliament? The father of
Oh,
the funk.
yes.
And I saw him in Paris.
That must have been fun.
Yeah.
He seems like a fun
Crazy.
personality. Yeah.
They held about 2,500 people, and we had front row. And my son, towards the end of the concert, he's, Dad, thank you so much for bringing me there. This is so great.
Yeah, London's great. I love going there. And what I love so far about the show that we're having now is the comparisons between me and Michael. And aside from that, to get to where we are today, very, very similar tracks with community college.
Yeah.
I want to get
That's
to that.
where we
That's
started.
a great point, Michael.
Yeah.
Neither one of you had the easy track. You had the tough track. Michael, as a matter of fact, your mother bribed you to get a, what do they call it? The
GED.
equivalent?
Yeah, equivalent.
How did she
Yeah.
bribe you?
So, as you already told the audience, I was kind of a derelict in school, and I liked beer more than I liked biology. And I had some trouble. I'm not going to deny it. And my mom, the principal at North Reading High School said that if you take the GED and pass it, I'll let you walk down the aisle with your graduating class. So my mom said, if you take the test at Somerville High School, I'll buy you a case of beer.
Oh, wow.
And so that morning, it was 7:30 in the morning. She's yelling, Mike, get up! You have to take the test. I can't get up. I was probably out until 4 in the morning, and she goes, I'll buy you a case of beer. I went, I'm up.
Oh, stop.
And I went and I passed the test.
Okay.
Thankfully, yeah.
But here's the best one. When he came to Lynn in one of his incarnations, between Austin Prep and North Reading High and the rest, he ends up at Lynn Tech. In those days, it was Lynn Tech and Classical, wasn't it?
So they hadn't finished the tech school yet, so you would go to classical for English, history, and math, and then you would jog over to the new tech for your shop classes. So my first day in Lynn, my father owned a nightclub in Revere, and I was living with my dad in East Boston, and we used somebody's Lynn address in order for me to go to Lynn Tech.
Right.
And my first day at school, I met these kids from Curran Circle, and they had stolen 55 cases of beer from the Schlitz trucks. I didn't go to school for a week, and I've never left Lynn since. It's like
wow.
Somerville with Ocean. I fell in love with
55
Lynn.
cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Somerville
only
with
the best
Ocean.
part, he self-admitted he was an alcoholic, basically, as a young kid.
Teenage alcohol.
And then all of
sure.
a sudden, you know what? Bingo, he stops. Age 20, right?
21. Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
At the age that you can drink, you stop.
I drank legally for about well, actually, the drinking age back then was 18.
18, okay.
Yeah, so I was legal. But there was a policeman from Swampscott. I had another little beef, nothing ever real serious. But Chief Cassidy, who was a detective at the time, he said, they say you're a pretty good kid when you're not drinking, but you're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He goes, this place is for a kid like you. You need help. And that was September 26, 1979, and never had a drink again.
That's your stop
That's
drinking.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And came up with a novel idea, Michael. Want to hear this one? Prior to it, you can do it on my phone again?
I am. I'm going to take it in a
Prior,
second.
that just tells us we're here. Prior to he becoming an attorney, I mentioned he was a DJ.
Yeah.
But listen to this one. He turned around and he conceived, he was also an entrepreneur. This is the part that gets me. he conceived of the fact there are a lot of people who stop drinking. They're in sobriety. But they like nightclub life. They
Yes.
want music.
Yep.
What's he do? He creates a nightclub on weekends for people who don't drink. He DJ'd for them. He did a great business.
That's
15
awesome.
years, put myself through graduate school at BU and law school at Boston College.
That's amazing. No, that's so true. When I was younger, we had the BBC that you can go to. It was for ages like 14 to 18. So they didn't serve alcohol. They served, soda and whatnot. But you could go to a club as opposed to going partying somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's great. And that was in Florida.
Okay.
No.
No, for you.
No, for me it was right here in Lynn.
You opened, really? The nightclub? Where was it?
Yeah, believe it or not, this was what's kind of crazy. The bulk of my gigs were at St. Mary's.
Okay.
And what I did, and the statute of limitations I think is passed, so what I did is the maintenance guy who's retired was in charge of booking the hall. And I would pay him $400 for a Friday night to so-called help me with my equipment. But the reason why I really did it is he wouldn't let anybody else book the hall. So I was killing it. We had 300 people on every Friday night. And,
That's crazy.
$5 a head. So that really put me through. I bought my house on Maple Street running those dances. I went to college, grad school, law school. I was making more than my professors while I was DJing.
Yes, but something intervened. And he didn't let that stop him.
Yeah.
We spent 3 months in Lynn Hospital, 3 months in the Boston Hospital, and about a year
home in
thereafter.
Swampscott. I rented an apartment, and my mom had a 3-family house in Swampscott. And I had the first floor. I made it, somewhat handicap accessible.
Well, explain to how we got to that point.
We never even talked about my diving accident. So
Yeah,
I was
that's what I wanted to get
sober about 9 months, and I had a driver's license. I was dating girls, but I was going out on dates at 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings because I couldn't drive after 5 o'clock at night. I had a Cinderella license, they called it. But my spirit was coming back. Here I was at community college. I was, sober. I was running the beach. I was working for a landscaper. Learned how to play golf, and I was about 9 months sober. I was working in the hunt. Just finished my first semester of school. I had an apartment with the kid from college over in Swampscott, a little apartment on Maple Ave. And I was with the guy, Tommy Muldoon, and we were driving home, and I saw a bunch of people diving and swimming in Lynn Beach. I said, Tommy, drop me off here. I'm going to go swimming, and I'm going to run back to my apartment. And I dove in the water that day, and I broke my neck. And I was, it was life-changing.
But then you went to North Shore.
Yeah.
Then you went from North Shore, like you went to North Shore also, didn't you? And both of you ended up going to Lowell.
So I went to Suffolk,
and you
then
went
to Lowell.
Salem at Salem University now, but it was Salem State at the
So
time.
what happened was, after I broke my neck, obviously I wasn't running back to school too quick. So it took me a couple of years. And at that point, they had finished. When I went to North Shore, it was up in Beverly. It was on Essex Street. It was a 200-year-old building. And they just finished a new campus in Lynn. And I finished up my associate's degrees, more or less, at Lynn. And then I transferred over to Salem State.
And from Salem State, upon graduation, you got a scholarship to go to Boston University as a journalist.
A professor of mine said, you got a pretty good little knack for doing this. You ought to consider applying for a scholarship at BU in the communication program. And I did that, and I ended up getting some money, and I went over to BU, and that was like a 2-year graduate degree program.
It's a great,
Then an uncle intervened.
great commercial communication
Yeah,
program.
it's very good.
Listen to this one.
Yeah.
He's driving back from Connecticut.
Well, I'm actually going to Connecticut. So I had an uncle of mine who was like a mentor. He was a very successful businessman, and I lived with him for a little bit when I was young. And, but he was all about making a buck. And I mean, a good guy. I don't want to make it like all about making a buck, but he was a businessman, and he thought I was a businessman. And my son Paul was 8 months old, and I go to visit my uncle, which I was, apt to do. And I'm all proud of my new degree in journalism. And he said, essentially, "What are you kidding me? What are you going to do with this?" He goes, "You need to go to law school. You need to make some money, or you know, as a lawyer, you're going to be able to do a bunch of different things, as opposed to, you know, journalism. You'll be doing this forever, and who knows if you're ever really going to make a living. And, you know, I was aggravated, but I thought about what he said. All the way home from Connecticut, I wouldn't put the radio on. You know, it was, you know,
it was dwelling in your head.
It was a commitment, yeah. And I said, you know what? Maybe he's right. I started studying for the LSATs, and within a year, I was accepted to Boston College Law School, and he was right. It was the best thing that I've ever done.
Awesome.
Ever.
You also teach at Boston College.
Just finished my 9th year. I teach litigation skills, in the fall.
Awesome.
You lost your father quite young.
Yep, 15. Yep, Paul Mahoney.
How did that impact?
So at the time when I was still drinking, you know, probably at the beginning of my drinking career, and now I had nobody that I was afraid of, you know, because I respected my dad, you know, I wasn't afraid that he was going to beat me. I was afraid that I was going to disappoint him.
Let him down.
And now he's gone. So now I just ran around the country, Joe, like a wild kid. I was in California. I actually, I don't know if I told you this story, but it was a gray, cloudy February morning, and I had been drinking pretty good, and I woke up in my mom's third floor apartment at Swampscott, and everybody was gone, my 2 sisters, my mom. And I called some girls I knew from Mississippi, and I said, if I come down there, can you get me a job? They said, yeah, we'll get you a job. So this was before cell phones, and I looked around and I found a dime in an ashtray for collect phone calls. I made four peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I grabbed a bag of cookies, a heavy coat. I went onto the Linway with a sign that said South. Now it starts snowing a little bit, and a truck driver has me, and we're heading like out by Springfield. And he said, Michael, people die in the side of the road in this kind of weather. Let me drop my load off and bring you back to Boston. I said, nope, I'm going to Mississippi. Well, guess what day that was? That was the blizzard of '78. I hitchhiked to Gulfport, Mississippi with the dime in my pocket. It took me 5 days to get down there.
What a story.
That's a whole nother show, just hearing about my trip to Mississippi.
And so I was 16, and I was homeless at that point, and I lived with my mom at Project Cope. I told you the story before.
Yes.
And it wasn't a family house, so they were going to kick her out of the program, which meant she was going to have to go to jail.
Wow.
So instead of that, I ended up going to live in Florida with my uncle.
Okay.
So it was right after 9/11, so there weren't any planes. So I had to take a Greyhound bus over 2
yeah.
days
Oh,
down
Jesus.
there.
Yeah.
And there was a snowstorm in North Carolina. They shut down the entire state. It was ridiculous. I was sitting next to people with ankle, handcuffs, because that's how we're transporting prisoners.
Oh, boy.
So we've both had these long cross-country.
No kidding. I never heard about that one.
Oh, no. That was a lot of fun. And we actually... So one of the stops was in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
That was a scary, scary place.
Yeah.
North Carolina and Jacksonville, Florida, which was also another very urban area, and then Hollywood, Florida.
So I'll tell you a story. So I'm stuck in New York, and I was in one place, and they shut down the highway. You couldn't go anywhere, and somehow I was able to get to a big, huge truck stop, and I heard a guy said he needed to get to Georgia. He didn't care if the roads were stopped. His daughter was having surgery. So I said, sir, can I catch a ride? And he said, are you 18? I said, yep. He goes, be ready at 6 a.m. So next morning we met, and and every time he would stop to get something to eat, he'd say, hey, you want something to eat? And I'm like, nah, no thank you. I'm just going to sleep in the cab. And then I would help him check his tires. After about a day of this, he said, Yankee, you got any money? And I said, no. He goes, I ought to kick your ass. And he brought me to a place. He gave me $1. He goes, yeah, go take a shower. They had like these showers at these places. He bought me a couple of cheeseburgers. His name was Wild Bill. He was a professional wrestler at one time in Canada. Oh, wow. And when he dropped me off at a bus station in Georgia, he had $3 in his pocket. He gave me $2, and he said, look, I'm only a couple miles down the road. I'll be all set. And just some of the nicest people.
That's amazing. And you say this often, that I wouldn't be who I am had it not been from people intervening.
That's
in
right.
my
There you
life.
go. Yep.
And you have the same. Wow.
See, what I love about the two of you, and I'm so happy that I met both of you, and that I've known you, is what you were dealt with and what you accomplished. Both of you today, you are always representing the underdog. So aren't you, Michael? I mean, you specifically deal with folks who have situations like yourself and worse.
Yeah.
And in Lynn, a very good friend of my son had a similar accident like you did, not diving, but riding a bike, snapped his neck, same situation as you, who now has a nice job with the state and is doing quite well, David Kirby. And I think you handled his case, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Nice kid.
Yeah. So what I found for me was that, I mean, my office, there's 3 attorneys that work for me, and we handle all types of cases, but the ones that I feel closest to my heart are the catastrophic cases. So
Right.
I've done maybe a half a dozen quadriplegia cases. You know, right now we're actually flying around the country. We have a death case, a young kid, 31 years old, got killed in Orlando, Florida. So, and what we do is we find local lawyers that are familiar with the local rules. So they do a motion called pro hac vici, which allows out-of-state lawyers to practice in a jurisdiction.
Yes.
So I've represented these Cuban lady that were killed in Indiana. I currently have Florida. I'm doing a quadriplegia case right now in New Hampshire. I'm representing a doctor that was injured in Rhode Island. And then I've done multiple serious. I just had a poor guy that was paralyzed, a semi-pro football coach out of Brockton for that, whatever the team is there.
The semi-pro?
Yeah.
Patriots,
With
I think
that,
they're called.
Hernandez was killed one of the guys on that team. Anyway, that coach, we just got him $10 million on a major accident, and
$10 million.
yeah. And currently, I'm representing.
Michael, you know, you also are an immigration lawyer.
Yeah.
You also look for social justice. You're big into social justice.
One of my specialties is special education, and making sure that students are receiving the proper accommodations and instructions that they need. It's important because a lot of times they don't have the voice or the tools, or they don't know the tools that the school districts are required to provide for them. So it's so important to brief and educate our clients on their rights, or their families, especially if they're deceased.
But having lived the life that you have and the life that you have, and seeing what you have done, and you bring a certain dimension to your profession that a lot of people who go to an Ivy League grad school, you know, they just don't have that.
No, there's definitely lots of stuff that you can't learn that you had to live through in order to relate to other people, and those, I think that gives us a heightened ability to resolve cases because we know them in and out, because they're so important to us.
That's fair to say.
Michael, you stressed the fact you put your office in Lynn.
Yeah.
Specifically because you said Lynn is who I represent.
Yeah.
But not
You
only
could have been
that,
in Boston, huh?
but not only that, his office is right on the water.
Right.
If he was bitter from what took place, you wouldn't be where you're at. You understand, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Like that is the space that caused the accident, and he's all in. You go into
That's
that
an
office.
interesting point, Michael. I hadn't thought of it. Keep going. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I've been to your office,
Yep.
and the way he treats and interacts with his staff is amazing. The respect that you see is amazing.
I know.
Estelle, she lives above your office, and a bunch of other stuff, and everyone knows who he is. It's the greatest.
Yeah.
I know that I had a little issue finding your office because they took your sign down.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's back up. Did they finish the work?
Construction, yes.
Did they finish it, or are they still doing
No,
it?
they're not, but they put a couple of the signs up
Okay,
for me.
good,
Yeah,
good,
I had to
good.
bribe a couple of the Brazilian
Well,
guys
400?
running the-
Is that the going number these days?
Well, wait a second. When I go there,
Yeah.
I end up with books. He gives me books. He's a great
Oh, gee.
reader.
Yeah. Did the lady end up making the washcloths for you out of that
She
material?
did. She did. She did a great job. You remember my tailor? Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
what
Shout
other
out
cases?
to Henrietta. Yeah.
Henrietta, you're the best. What other cases you working
So
on?
right now, have you heard about the MBTA case where the man got his arm stuck in South Boston?
Yeah.
And he was dragged to his death. That's a Honduran family, and so I'm representing one of the heirs in that case. There's a young man, a 20-year-old man, and a 12-year-old girl. And so currently, that's probably the biggest case in Massachusetts
Yeah.
this year. There's a lot of people not liking the MBTA lately.
Well, that's what I was going to say. One of the things that that's going to be helpful for you is the federal reports, the internal reports, which clearly show that they're understaffed, that they don't have the right protocols and whatnot.
That's right.
So that's all public data that's going to bolster your case up. But it's not really about that. It's about the fact that those kids don't have a father anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where the damage has come. You can't replace. You lost your parent at a
That's
young
right.
age. So it's
pay anything to get them
of
back.
course.
Yeah. For a minute, just to have a conversation. I think the new administration, I hope is going to try and fix that. They just
Governor Haley and the lieutenant governor from here.
And they just actually got Tommy McGee too. Is just been appointed to the board.
Correct. Yeah. And Tommy, so I don't want to call him Tommy, former Lynn Mayor McGee was on the committee when he was the state senator for transportation.
Okay.
So he has a ton of history working with transportation. He knows the impact that it has on all these things. And, a lot of people will think and say, oh, well, that doesn't impact me because I don't use the public transportation. So you see that the people that do currently use this public transportation don't have their own vehicle. They're normally in the lower threshes of income, household income. So this man was probably going to work or going to coming home from work. And he only took the means of transportation that he had, and it wasn't safe enough. There wasn't
Joe, his arm got stuck in the door. Imagine this. It was an 18-year-old UMass college student trying to free his arm. The train started moving, so now he's jogging along the stairway, the runway, and 105 feet to his death. It ripped his arm off, threw him into the train tracks. Just the most horrific way of dying. We've hired an impending death expert on a case like that, just to imagine what this poor man
suffered.
felt,
That wasn't an immediate death. That was torture. Yeah. That's what's upsetting to me.
So cases upset you?
Oh, of course.
Well, it isn't, of course. Some people are only interested in the bottom line.
Yeah.
Michael, I don't strike you, or either one of the Michaels, I don't strike either one of you as one looking at the bottom line.
I think what happens is when you've sort of been there, like the Boston Globe did a story about me years back, and it said an advocate who knows their pain, So I think I've been.
I like that.
So maybe it is something that, because I've experienced, when what you've experienced, that we have a certain empathy to whether it's an immigrant or whether, look I'm just a blue collar kid from the city, Somerville, Lynn. We spent some time in North Reading, but what I relate to is city kids and a one-parent household. And so if I have an opportunity to help somebody like that, it gives me great joy to all of a sudden somebody's able to buy a home or put their kids into school. So
Michael, I said to be here at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
You were here at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're at Boston College. I read some reviews from students of yours who are amazed at what it takes you, what you must do in order to get to Boston College on time. You've never missed a class. You've never been late, okay? That's a hallmark. Now, I want you to tell these folks out here about something that absolutely blows my mind. I wish we had the sophistication, the capabilities of showing it like we did at cable. And it's your car. You remember the car, Michael?
The
Give
BMW.
a description of what you saw in that video. And then I want you, Michael, to tell these folks where they can see it.
So the video, I believe, is used for a documentary or commercial of yours. And he pulls up in the BMW, the trunk opens, and this arm comes out and allows you to get out of your vehicle and into your chair.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And how he found out about that was even more amazing, that story. You're aware, you're out there, and you've had that, you said, since the 90s?
About 20
an
years.
Israeli company that designed it, didn't it?
Yeah, so what happened was I had been in a wheelchair about maybe 15 years, 20 years, and I would drive a van. And one day I saw some kids I grew up with in Harley Davidsons, and I'm like, look at how cool those guys look. Nobody's saying, look at Mike Mahoney in his van, how cool he looks.
Stop.
So the next day I went to a Cadillac dealership in Danvers, and I bought a brand new, I figured I'm not going to get in any trouble. It's a Sunday, they're closed. Well, there was an off-duty salesman there, and 6 minutes later, I bought a brand new Eldorado. I had no idea how to get in and out of it. It took me 4 months to figure out how to drive it. So I drove that for a couple years, and the hard part was folding the wheelchair and pulling it in the back seat. So after the Eldorado, the next car I had was a CL500 Mercedes, and the same thing. And then a buddy of mine, Harold, said he saw this thing online, and it was this robot that would go into a trunk, and it would actually grab your wheelchair and put it into the trunk. And so I bought a BMW, you know, the 7 Series that you see in the commercial, and I've been doing it, you know, probably 10 BMWs since I started doing it, yeah.
No,
But you know what drove him crazy?
What's that?
He couldn't believe when you drove off into the sunset.
Yeah.
What did the plate say?
the lawyer plate.
Yeah, plaintiff.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yes, you're the plaintiff attorney. That's important. That's
a little
great.
fun, huh?
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful.
But I remember going to Holy Cross because a mutual friend of ours was playing in the state championship.
Yeah,
Do you remember
Frank
that, Michael?
Carey, yeah, the championship.
And who's
yeah.
there in the audience? But he.
Yeah.
No matter, he'll show up. I don't know how he gets there. He'll show up at the card game. He'll wipe out half the food and leave.
The confidence
you do not allow your disability to stop you from doing
he doesn't allow his
anything.
disability to define him, and he is the
I
most
love that.
confident person that I know. The way that you interact with people, the way that they treat you, it's not with special gloves. It's amazing, and
So,
that's how it should be.
I'm in Salem District Court, and it's a recess, and one of the court officers handcuffs me to my wheelchair. So Timmy Merrick handcuffs me to my right wheel, and they call a break, and everybody leaves the courthouse, and he handcuffs me so I can't wheel out of there. So just to give you an idea, yeah, nobody's giving me any special attention. They bust my balls just like they bust everybody else's balls.
No, Salem's a good court too.
But you know what, Joe? I've been to 2 Super Bowls. I've been to every World Series games that the Red Sox has played in Boston. I've flown out to St. Louis. I've been to World Series in Kansas City. I've been to, I've been to World Series at Yankee Stadium. I've been to 26 countries in Europe. It's just an excitement. It's like a thrill I get out of like, what can I do to like have them talking about me on Monday this time? You know?
You know what his latest discovery is? It's a many talents. DJ,
Yeah.
right? I told you about that.
World traveler,
He a lawyer, journalist.
father. That's the most important one for you, right?
I mean, down the list, he's now a tout.
A what?
A tout.
Really?
He predicts the outcome of horses.
No way.
Oh, well, I found
That's his newfound
That's
skill.
FanDuel. Wow, that stuff, it's easy. I mean,
Did you like that we can now do sports better in Massachusetts?
100%. Yes. Well,
Oh, I love it.
you know about Joe's bookmaking career.
Oh,
right?
yes, I do. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
You know, this is the part, folks, I hope you understand. Here you have 2 guys laughing about life. And life doesn't
No,
necessarily
we were laughing
deal
about
the
your
best.
bookmaking career.
You know, Michael, you took care of a mother who was a drug addict.
Yeah, my mom.
And that is admirable in itself. And it just amazes me. There is no excuse, folks. None. It's just a desire in the will. And being around good people. You had good people. You always credited good people.
Always.
So didn't you.
Yeah. I literally, in my head, I can think of pivotal moments in my life and who was there. And I love that you remember every single person's name and what they've done for you, because it's so important.
Yeah.
And, I talked to you about the story about the lady who lived on Trinity Ave who,
Yeah.
just pretty much saved
The
me
red
at such
bike?
yes, at such a young age, and how I found her years later. And when I found her and I thanked her, she was in tears because she always wondered what happened to me. She thought that I would.
You invited her to your wedding.
She came to my wedding too.
Nice.
And those are the stories that people don't hear about. Like, there's so many good things that happen in our world, but all we hear about are the bad things. That's it. And it's crazy. Obviously, we have to correct the bad, and that's where attorneys like us come into to play. But there are a lot of good people out there.
Yeah.
There are.
He's one of them.
He is. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Michael, my daughter loves you. You know that. My daughter Beth. And she's going to be very happy when I get her the story. She's up there with her daughter Lily, who, by the way, will make me a great-grandfather for the 4th time come October.
Congratulations.
And that connection. And Michael, I have a connection with you. My kids. I had his mother-in-law as a student, right?
Beth Battle.
And the battle. You remember the Battle family on Norcross Terrace?
What is it?
Battle. Eddie
Yes.
Battle?
Yeah.
That's right.
He married a Battle girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A granddaughter of the Battle.
Okay.
And I see all of these folks who did so much for this city. Your grandfather-in-law, he was with Martin Luther King.
He was a bodyguard.
For Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He traveled down south to protect
And
him.
Michael, I mean, you became popular with the kids because your father owned a nightclub in Revere.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and by the way, one of the best part, he's gone up many notches because I found out that his mother came from the same tribe as I came from.
Yep. Half Italian.
Yeah, my wife's half Italian, so he likes her much.
That's why I like him.
Yeah.
Kid, folks, we're going to kind of wrap this up, and I hope that people understand. Listen, I want both of you to give them the message that they need to know about look, you're going to fall down, you're going to get bruised, you're going to get a bloody nose, but guess what? Get up.
Yeah, you don't let your situations define you. You don't let your situations define you. You just say that over and over again. I have a 14-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and when they're having a bad day, I bring them into the bathroom so they can look in the mirror and restart. Because you might have woken up on the wrong side of the bed, but don't let that define the rest of your day, because you still have 23 hours left. You know, how many hours left in that day? And we've probably been in a ton of situations. You talked about being on a Cinderella license, which meant your license was suspended.
Yep.
I'm assuming it was for a DUI or
That's
something
right.
like that.
Yep.
And you didn't let that define you. You went in, you got your license to be able to do certain things.
Yep.
And then you still wanted a date in life.
Yeah.
So you started to go on dates at 10 a.m. And those are ways to work around your circumstances or your situation. And I had to do the same thing. I wasn't going to go live on the street. I couldn't when my mom's program was going to kick her out. So we had to look for ways for me to have a place to go. And then when I got to Florida, I found out that my uncle was also an addict.
Yeah.
And I had to find another place to go to. And a place that I've never been to before.
Yeah.
So, it's about understanding your situation and understanding that doesn't define you, and trying to come to solutions to get out of those situations that lead a cycle.
Yeah.
I feel like you broke your cycle and I broke my cycle.
100%.
Michael, how do they take a look? You have a website, correct? Because I think it would be to their advantage. Anybody here, Facebook, you can find it on Facebook, for them to see the videos of the car, for example, which is really terrific. And of course, if they're down by Revere, Wonderland, they're going to see this monster
Billboard.
Michael Mahoney ad.
Or in Wyoming Square.
Yeah.
So you have Nicole Bluford over here,
Yeah.
and you have Mike Mahoney over here.
So they can see Michael in living color.
Yeah.
But
just quickly, so for people that live in Salem, because this is going to obviously broadcast in Salem, you have a large clientele base here in Salem?
Oh, yes. My first office was on Line Street in Salem, right across from the district court, right off of Washington Street with Neil Horahan and John Skerry. And so, I represent a lot of people from Salem.
Good. And you have the commuter rail there, which is great, because if they were to take the commuter rail to Len, that Len stop is not far from your office.
And we come out. We go to accident scenes. So many times if somebody doesn't have the transportation, I'll come right out and meet them at the accident scene, which is what I prefer to do, just to see how the accident happened, where it happened.
Okay.
I like that. I'm a person that needs to see it and touch it and think about it. So
it's interesting when you get pictures of Google from the sky from insurance companies, and they try to go over it. You're like, it's not the same thing.
Right.
Like, I've never looked at it from a bird's view.
We're going Friday down to Orlando to see where this client of mine was killed, in the car accident, because you just want to know about, gas stations around the corner, sub
Any
shops,
cameras or
anything.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And those roads are much larger. It's a grid down in Florida. So the roads, they're normally 3 or 4 lanes, right? They're pretty large. That's where I learned how to drive. I couldn't believe it, because Lynn roads, Boston roads, very different.
Tell me about it. I used to go down to visit my my siblings down in Boca, and believe me. By the way, Michael, are you aware of the fact that there's some famous alumni from the Mike Mahoney F. law firm establishment, and one of them is a state rep who once was a counselor at large.
Dan Cahill.
Dan Cahill has the best personality. He's the funniest person.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you two in a room. When he's not in front of a camera or being serious, he's the goofiest person that you'll ever meet. And I could see the two of you.
I still have a picture of Dan. We hired him to drive us after the Red Sox won the first World Series. So he worked for me in 2005. And we went from Fenway Park to Morton's, and we told him if he could get us there in 8 minutes, we'd buy him the biggest steak he's ever had. And I got a picture of him eating a 48-ounce
Stop
steak.
it. Did he finish it?
Yeah, he ate it.
Oh, he's a big boy. He's a big boy. But we're lucky to have Dan Cahill.
Yeah.
And obviously, Manny's been on our show a couple times, who's the state rep here in Salem.
Yeah.
Another great guy. So, yeah, we have about 5 minutes left. You know, I spoke a little bit. I don't know if you want to continue the dialogue about what's going on.
You talked about, like, what makes you, like, maybe what brought us to where we are today. You know, I always go back to this woman that was at University Hospital, and she said, even if you had no place to go, just get up and go through the motions, get dressed, you know, take a shower, get dressed, and that's sort of what I've done. You know, it started, I had no idea that I was going to be where I'm at today. You know, there's sometimes when you get pretty down, but you show up for life, and I don't know, one day, you know, a woman tells me she's in love with me, and next thing you know, I'm in Jamaica with her in the beaches, you know. Next day, she's telling me she's not in love with me, and I'm in the fetal position on the ground, you know. Then the next day, you know, I'm delivering my fourth baby on the 4th of July, you know, so it's just amazing. You know, maybe, I don't know how many more years I have left, but, you know, if it's anything like the last few chapters, I want to stick around and see what's up, because usually it ends up being pretty positive.
Yeah, no, those are all great
But that's always been your attitude, Michael, as long as I've ever known you, as long as I've known you. And that's the thing. I mean, I remember when you were in Maple Street, when you brought me over to your house one day, and the way you equipped it and designed it to make it accessible. And every time I see that who's that guy from Tunnels? You ever see that? His last name begins with an S. His brother got killed in the Twin Towers when they went down, and he's doing he does for veterans who lost their legs, and they build houses. They actually put money together to build houses for them, make them accessible to them. It's a really, really nice gesture that he does, and you did that with your house before it was fashionable. You actually were the forerunner. You know, he and my buddy of ours, they built down in Florida so you could wheel into a shower.
That's
you
what I was
designed that.
Yeah.
I was I had broken up with a girl, and I was in. I finally started to be able to breathe again, and I ended up in the Spanish Riviera, and I was like back in action again. You know, I felt okay, and I was in the Riviera for a month. I rented a condo, and I said, you know, I was 26 years old, and I said, there's got to be guys like me making a few bucks who just need a couple amenities to be able to go away. So I put an ad in a wheelchair magazine that said I had a place in Fort Lauderdale with a rolling shower, and my phone rang off the hook, and Jimmy Abernathy and I went down there and bought a couple of condos, made them wheelchair accessible, and
the rest is history.
We rented them out for years.
And the crazy thing about it is that kind of pushed the hotel industry to do it in order to compete.
Right.
So it's amazing what you can do when you have time on your hand and you have the appetite or the hunger to do it. And that's great. We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, we don't have that much time, and I'd like you and Michael to do the close.
Thank you, Mike.
The two Michaels, the Archangels.
It's always great to have you and to continue to talk about your life and everything that you've been through, and the similarities are eerie and actually great, because it's you know, I always like to reflect, because like you said, sometimes you're in the fetal position, and if you reflect on all the good stuff that has gone on in your life, it kind of gives you that drive you need to get to the next page, because it's not over. And I love how you identified it as chapters.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why you do what you do as a lawyer, because you understand that everyone else has chapters.
Yeah.
And they could have been injured badly, but that's only part of their chapter. And we have to get to the next one, and that's what you do as a lawyer.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me on
Oh,
here,
no.
Joe. No,
Oh, no.
what's that?
You're not leaving that quick. I need you to tell these folks
Yeah.
how they can access the Michael F. Mahoney. Just go on the website,
Just
put
Google
it in,
Michael Mahoney,
and
lawyer
they can
in
see
Lynn.
all of the
Yep.
stuff
Yep.
that
They'll
we
be able
weren't
to-
able to.
Michael
Yep.
Mahoney,
Yep.
It's very
Google that,
important.
Len. Yes.
Well,
It's really important that they see
Yeah.
it because it's,
Yeah.
Michael, does it blow your mind?
It does, it does. And thank you for joining us today. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Beautiful.